Hello, welcome to that Eurovision Sites YouTube channel. I am joined here by Isabelle and Euan. We'll be talking about an exciting new stuff that came out recently. Since we are in new Eurovision season, we'll be having a lot of national finals, and the first national final this year that is happening is Ukraine, which is a very interesting choice. We have 10 participants. Unlike other years, we don't have semifinals. And last year we only had 6 songs, if I remember correctly. Was it 6? I think it was 6. All right. It's more this year than the year before. The participating artists this year are I'm gonna go through the running order. Performing first will be Moisei with I'm Not Alone. Then followed by Oil Sound System with Oj Tyży. Then we have Demchuk with Alive. We have Jerry Hale with When God Shut the Door. She's one of the returnees to Vidbir. She took part in Vidbir a few years ago with the song Vegan. So a very different vibe from her this year. We have Finka with Dowbush, I'm sorry. Then we have Kruć with Koliskova. She also is a returnee. She performed a song called 1999 in 2020, if I remember correctly. I have Timber Blanche with Ja w Doma. We have Angelina with Stronger. We have later followed by Tuton with Kwitka, and the last performing artist will be Tworczy with Heart of Steel. So let's start our discussions with overall feelings about this year's selection, and just what do you think about the songs overall?
So, firstly, it's worth noting that the songs were only released like days ago. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, at the time of recording anyway, we've had like 24 hours with the songs, right? A bit more than 24 hours with the songs. So I've been looping the playlist. But we're talking, very, very much hot takes at this point, particularly for me, because unlike some of you who have been watching Vidbir for a little while longer, I only started watching Vidbir last year, the Ukrainian national final last year. So none of these artists are actually familiar to me. So I was hearing all of them for the first time, and my immediate impression is really positive. I think that this is a really solid lineup. I think it's a really diverse lineup. I'm immediately really pleased by the sort of diversity of the acts. There's a lot of light and shade. I was not impressed with Vidbir last year. I thought I was actually really disappointed. I love Ukrainian music generally. I really went into watching Vidbir with high expectations, and it felt sort of scrappy. Really, it's an unpopular opinion, but last year Alina Pash had the only song that I thought was good at all. And I mean, I loved that song, and well, we know what happened. This year, I don't think there's a bad. I know that there's going to be some disagreement here, and we're going to have some heated discussion, I'm sure, but I don't think there's a bad song in the lineup. I think that there are a few underwhelming songs, but out of 10, 2 or 3 underwhelming songs is really not bad. I'm really excited to see some folk in there. I know that a couple of us really responded quite strongly to the violin in Moisei's song. The song itself is not the most exciting, I don't think. It is growing on me, though. I think that I think with the right staging, it actually would have the potential to be really powerful. But that's to be seen. But the violin's great. I have two standout favorites. Just straight off the bat, I'm just completely enamored by Oi Sound System and by Finca. Like, just from the first listen, for really different reasons. Finca is bringing folk, and a a song about a folk hero as well. So Dovbush is this Ukrainian Robin Hood type character, like a historical character who has become sort of a folk hero, from the very brief reading that I've done about him. It's really exciting to hear, rather to read, because I wasn't aware of this before. I am only aware of this because she brought it up at the press conference when they unveiled the songs, that the song itself is in Hutsul, which is a really intriguing dialect. It's considered a dialect of Ukrainian, but Google tells me it's a mosaic of words from Polish, Hungarian, Armenian, Russian, and Romani, and others. So it is a Ukrainian language, but it's got all of these loan words and borrowings, and it's Finca says it's the language that Dovbush himself spoke, which I think is a cool touch. And she said that she was like excited to be kind of, representing that. She wants people to listen to it and ask, what language is she singing in? Which I love, obviously. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm basically a slut for languages. So I just think that's really cool. I love the sound of it though. The style reminds me of Manizha for Russian in 2021. There's something kind of folkloric and also subversive about it, which that's my jam. Oi Sound System, really different sound, right? They have this experimental, they've got a bunch of different sonic influences that you can just immediately hear in Oi Tuju. Still with this like folkloric kind of, there's a folk element to their sound, particularly to the vocal, but the moody synths are right up my street. There's an avant-garde jazz influence there, which I'm really into. Like, think David Bowie's last album, avant-garde jazz, right? So straight off the bat, I'm just like, I'm in love with them. I can see myself playing them over and over this year, regardless of how well they do. There are others in the mix that I know will do well or will be popular. Like, just looking at the YouTube viewing figures straight off the bat, Jerry Hale has like twice, three times the number of hits that anybody else has. So she's obviously really resonating. My one criticism I'd say is that, as I often find with Ukraine's songs at Eurovision and also, in last year's selection, the English language lyrics are, a lot of them feel like first draft lyrics or placeholder lyrics. I should preface this and say that I'm really picky with lyrics. Like, they're the thing I listen to kind of as soon as I'm able to discern what lyrics are being sung. I kind of really latch onto them, and a good lyric is like, will go straight to my heart. Like, something, it doesn't have to be complex. Like something like When God Shut the Door, I think, has lyrics that it's not because they're simple that they don't hit right for me. It's that they literally feel like a nursery rhyme, but not a good one. They just don't feel like good lyrics. They feel like someone's first draft to have something to sing for the demo, and then they just haven't been revised, which that sounds really harsh, but it's just how I feel. And it really, I think, stands out in Jerry Hale's song because the rest of the song is so strong. Like, I could see that winning, absolutely, because it's kind of got a clever combination of musical elements that I think are very popular and that, are attractive, and it feels very modern. But it also kind of is haunting, and it's just got a lot of good catchy elements and a lot of good unique musical elements, and then the lyrics are just crap. I'm so sorry, I just think the lyrics are rubbish, which is really disappointing. I will say that I'm pleased to see some quieter moments. I know, Janek, you were gunning for Timber Blanche to do something really amazing because I think you really love them. I'm sure you'll mention that, but on first listen, Avdoma was just not like particularly, didn't stand out to me. I just thought, well, this is pleasant, but whatever, immediately forgot about it. It's growing on me now. Like, it's actually become one of my favorites. Like, I've listened to it maybe half a dozen times now. I'm like, I really like it. It gives me Sebi, Slovenia 2019 vibes. Like, they do, their style does anyway. Like, I felt that immediately, but also like going and looking at the lyrics, the themes are they feel quite similar to Sebi, and I love that. I'm a sucker for that kind of that delicious soft melancholy but sweet sort of thematics, very soothing. And speaking of soothing, Kruch,
it was one of the worst Vidbirs that we've ever had. It's the national final that produces some of the greatest NF songs we'll have. It's given us Kaya, Kaska, Kadnai, Tayana, and this year it's just a bit of a mess, isn't it? Like, there's no, like, to use a very non-technical term, there's no to it. It's just very meh. Like, I know everyone is like in love with Jerry Heil and When God Opens the Door, but I mean, what is there to it? It just feels so damp and subdued. Like, so much of it, there's just no rawness to there. And I feel I keep saying rawness because I think a lot of the songs are seriously lacking this. I feel like a lot of the songs are just really lacking and seriously in need of a revamp. Like, I don't think there's any songs here that are ultimately completely bad. I also just don't love them. Like, I feel like basically everything could be a great song if they are revamped. For instance, like Sforchi, love their music, but this song really feels like the sixth place filler song that you get in an album. Same with Demchuk. I love some of their work, but like, this is just really lacking that oomph. Yeah, but I'm not just gonna criticize and say it's all bad, because there is some good aspects to it. There is an amazing array of genres, which we're really happy to see, because in previous videos, like, yeah, there was some diversity, but it's really sort of diversity in pop. There's not really been that much full diversity. So I'm really happy to see that. What I am extremely disappointed with that Stefania has done is sending anything in English or even a consideration. Countries send songs in English because they want it to do well, because they don't think their national language will really come across, will people really care. But Ukraine is in a very unique situation and position here. People around Europe are interested in Ukrainian culture. People love hearing Ukrainian culture and want to know more about it. Like, so to then consider sending something in English, I just think it's really quite offensive. I'm like, you could have done so much better. Yes, there's only 4 songs complete in English, and is it two partly, but that's not enough. People want to hear Ukrainian, like people all across Europe, and also technically you're a host. It is a hosting country, so really, I just feel like it could have been done so much better, and I'm really disappointed. Yes, I know that you can't have the same level of effort, and it's more difficult to create music given the circumstances, but I feel like it could have still been done a lot better than this, and I am kind of longing for the days when Vidbir was on STV. Just, yeah, I just think that this could have done so much better.
I'm distressed. I have no idea what to talk about, when to start, because my opinion is like in the middle between Isabelle and Euan, because I feel like Isabelle is very much extremely lean to the positive side, and Euan is extremely lean to the negative side, and I'm trying to find a perfect middle for myself, because I agree with Euan and Isabelle partly in some cases. So I feel like this edition of Vidbir is one of the weakest editions of Vidbir we had so far. I knew Vidbir since like technically 2017, but I came back 2016 because I heard one of my favorite bands was also in 2016, the Hard Keys. I love them, and I feel like it's one of the least favorite of mine. Like I don't think any of the songs is bad. I think that just they are not competitive compared to maybe some songs from other years. Like when I was listening to songs, and I tried to yesterday when I came back, I mostly was positive about most of the songs, and today I tried to listen to most of them, and I was like, I didn't. I wasn't able to do it because I kept listening to two songs from there that are my absolute favorites from the selection. I kept listening them again. Uh, I want to echo you about Forchi because I forgot to mention that Forchi is also a returning artist to Vidbir. I think it was also 2020 they took part in Vidbir with Bonfire. I think Bonfire was much better than the current song, and I think just like their discography is better than what they are showing us now. Isabelle already mentioned that Temper Blanche, they have a very specific sound, like they are very soft, very soft sounds, very folkish. So I was expecting something like that. Yavdama is fine, but it feels very much like a lofi beat, lo-fi. I don't know how to say it. So it's a chill song. Like when I was talking with everyone, I compared it to Latvia on that night. Something like I forgot exactly how it goes, but I feel like on that night has like a better melodic sound that Yavdoma. Like I feel like it's sells more than Yavdoma. Uh, of course, I want to shout out uh, Dovbush. I didn't know that it was in a different that Ukrainian. Uh, as a Pole, I kinda know Ukrainian and Belarusian Russian mostly from hearing it, and I kinda recognize. I also taught myself how to read it, but I don't know about dialects in Ukrainian. So my knowledge is very limited. So that's great to hear. I need to check out the lyrics. Maybe I could see some words that are like the same in Polish. So I just want to shout out her. But my two absolute favorites are Kruch with Koliskova. I am just a slut for the kind of music. Like you are when Kruch was in Vidbir a few years ago with 99. I wasn't feeling it as much as other people were feeling it, but Kolskova is just up to my eye. Like the instrumentation is just amazing. In the lyrics, it's just a lullaby, like the spee, like it's just statement, and it's such a comfort. So like last year we had Stefania. Stefania is in in Ukrainian more. That was also a lullaby kind of thing, but different kind of lullaby. But Koliskova is just a lullaby, and just a Easter egg because I don't know if Isabel even know it. Isabel definitely does know it because she doesn't know. They don't know what Crouch had before. But the last part of Koliskova is the same instrumentation that 99 one had in it. So she brought back this part again for Koliskova 2199, which is just amazing. If Ukraine wants to show their culture, their language, they want to go with Kruch this year or Dovbush, but I feel like Kruch is more competitive than Dovbush. we're gonna talk about competitivity later, but just to add, my absolute favorite this year, unlike you and Isabel, but when God Shut the Door is just, I'm just in love with the lyrics. Like maybe it isn't the best English. I can agree that. Like English isn't the most simple languages, and Slavic people for Slavic countries aren't the best at it. Like when I understand hearing sometimes Polish people speak English is, for me, is painful, and Ukrainian people aren't the best in English as well, so I can understand, but when God Shut Door is of course about the war. Like she mentions the war in the lyrics, so it isn't inevitable that the song is mostly about the war. But I kinda there is one part in the lyrics that just floored me. I'm gonna read it out in Ukrainian and then translate to English because I feel like it's more powerful in Ukrainian. It's the first part that Jerry sings in Ukrainian. It goes like zagrali piwni na zranku, tak w piwni wstań, odjachnij się, Bogu pomóż się, czyli you could translate in Truce's crowd, not in the morning, but at midnight. Get up, get dressed, pray to God. Like, that's what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. And she just said it, and it hit me how strong this lyric is for me. And I would say if Jerry Hills wins Vidbir, I would say When Ghosts Shut the Door is the most impactful, powerful song title I've seen in Eurovision in a very long time. I feel like since even 1944 isn't as impactful as the song itself, but I think When Ghosts Shut the Door is just so impactful with the title alone, and I think that's just something for me that as a and it's for me it's amazing, and why I love the lyrics about When Goes to the Door is my own interpretation about it, because I come from a very religious family, and religious trauma is unfortunately very much in depth in me, and I don't want to go about my life at all because of how I was very religious, and just some parts of the lyrics that just very much are so true about, for me. So like, I really hope to Jerry does well. From what I'm hearing from Ukrainians, she will probably win the televotes because Jerry is one of the most popular artists in Ukraine. Overall, just a fun fact, and up until the war, Jerry's most songs were like memes. Like Vegan was of course a meme. She's a YouTuber, like she's a content creator, so her content is more memey. But as the war happened and her content just shifted, like she and Alena did a song with Monica Liu. I don't remember the name exactly. I think it was Dove Boy or something. And that's just want to say that her discography just shifted 180, and I think that I'm happy that she decided to go with a serious song, unlike one of her mini songs. I think it's the situation just shifted a bit. So yeah, if Ukraine wants to go back to songs that have meanings with message, I think Go Shut the Door is a great example. If they want to go with their culture, with their traditions, Kruch and Koliskova. Okay, so before we move on to the next topic, just a quick mention. Vidbir, of course, will be happening on 10th December. The host will be Timur. Why I struggled to say Timur Miroshchenko in the Kyiv metro station, and there was like a small few months period that there were votings for who will be the juries, and the juries for Vidbir this year are Taras Topolia. He is a member of a band that I do not recognize, unfortunately. He's the lead vocalist. Of course, we have Jamala, the winner of 2016. And we have Yulia Sanina. To the listeners that they don't recognize the first listen, she's the lead singer of an Ukrainian rock band called the Hard Kiss. They took part in Vidbir 2016. Them and Jamala grand final, they tied for first, but Jamala won Vidbir because of her winning televotes. Not that televoting, and fun fact, Jamala to this day is the most televoted act in Vidbir so far. That's just a fun fact. She holds the record, and yeah, I think that's a fun fact. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. Do we expect any stagings on the night, or are we thinking it will be very simple because of the of what is happening right now? Like it's just it will be just a small part of the Kyiv metro. So I'm not expecting anything, but maybe you guys maybe have some opinions about that.
I'm glad you bring up expectations, because thinking about both you and Euan being slightly underwhelmed or like not as impressed with the lineup this year as in past years, I think is probably down to expectations. Like if you've been following this national final for some years, then you know you've come to expect a certain level of quality, whereas you know my only exposure to it really was last year. And I'm glad to hear you say and sort of vindicate me a little bit there, because you saying that actually last year was a weak year, kind of, you know, I'm like, okay, good, it wasn't just me then who was unimpressed. So I mean, for me, by comparison, this lineup is like, you know, miles more exciting. But in terms of staging, I'm not expecting much, and I think that probably we'd all be wise to not expect much. To be honest, I don't particularly remember the staging from last year standing out either. Like it didn't strike me as a super high production sort of thing, you know. It doesn't feel like masses of money is poured into the staging, so I'm not expecting much. I think that any sort of exciting staging really will come at the point of moving from, you know, will come post win. I think that when I think of I think a lot of these songs have potential for really fabulous staging, but I don't think that will be at Vidbir. I think that it'll probably come if they win at the Eurovision stage. I'm excited that there are a couple of instrumentalists, you know, like part of me is like, yes, we don't see a lot of live instruments at Eurovision these days, right? There was like there was a time when you couldn't move for violins at Eurovision on the stage, and obviously the fact that they're unplugged and, you know, and all instruments are on playback, it sort of, I'm aware that kind of reduces the impetus for having live musicians on the stage, but it does really add something. And like some of the most successful Eurovision entries of, you know, since we lost live music at Eurovision have still had bloody violins in them, haven't they? So it doesn't, but it makes me wonder whether, so this is exciting because as Janek already said, we're getting all of this Vidbir stuff much earlier than we usually do, because as they said in the press conference, they were really keen to sort of set to set it all up early, because they are kind of there in a hosting capacity. What's kind of exciting about that is it has the potential to set the tone a bit. Like, I know that a lot of the other national finals already have their artists, some even have their songs like already kind of confirmed, and we just haven't heard them yet. But some don't, you know. There's still the potential for things to be, I think, influenced by this Vidbir selection. I wonder whether we're seeing more folk, and well, this is Ukraine, so we're always gonna see some folk, but like compared to last year, more folk. We're seeing some violin. Is this the Trenule effect? I mean, it could be, right? Like, it makes me excited, and perhaps I should like tamp down my excitement and be a bit more cynical, but it makes me excited for the potential for more folk instruments, more jaunty folk more fiddles from maybe other countries, you know, this coming year. It sort of gives me a little taste of that. So really, I'm not expecting much in terms of staging. That's the question, Euan. I know we lost you for a bit there. The question is, what are we expecting from the staging at Vidbir? Are we expecting much? You know, do we think it's actually just going to be pretty straightforward? I think that, yeah, that no one's going to expect it to be fireworks. Like, I think that the fact that it's even happening is already a bit of a victory, given the circumstances in Ukraine at the moment. So but I think that has a potential to be quite beautiful in and of itself. Like, I think that especially if there are instruments on the stage, or especially if it's a haunting arrangement like Oi Toujours and When God Shut the Door, both have, you know, whether you love the songs or not, they both have that kind of haunting quality about them. You know, even Moises' I'm Not Alone, like a lot of these songs thematically are quite haunting, whether they're uplifting and comforting, or whether they're sort of a bit bleaker. They have sort of, I think a lot of them have the potential, I think the best songs anyway here in this lineup have the potential to be very beautiful and quite haunting, if just presented in quite a pared back way. So I see that working quite well. I think it'll be to the detriment of some of the stuff that we think feels a bit like filler, because I think that's the stuff that feels a bit more commercial as well. And I think I'm just gleaning from what all of us have said that that's the stuff that we're like the most not excited by too. You know, but that makes me think that maybe that stuff will just fall away, and the stuff that will really get to shine will be the lullaby with a harp, or, you know, the uplifting thing with a violin, or, you know, the bleak, weird electronica. I'm for that.
I think in quite contrast to the obviously the very negative point I had in my first when I first spoke, I actually have quite high expectations for staging, because Ukraine, even with some mess songs in both Vidbir and Eurovision, can still come out with some utterly phenomenal staging. Whether that's as simple as just the camera work with a simple person on stage, to creating this gorgeous atmosphere, to the elaborate dance tracks and backing dance, things like that. So I have really high hopes, because although I said that a lot of songs are meh and they need more oomph, as I said, I feel like the staging and the live presentation of this really can elevate a lot of them. The one that I think that stands out most for me would probably be Finka. Really feel like she could come up with something really iconic, is probably the best word, with the performance, and really elevate the song. And although I'm personally saying that the studio version isn't that great, I really feel like it can be elevated, and think that is the case with a lot of them. I don't think everything will be elevated really well, but also, as Isabelle touched on, the fact that they're having this really is great in itself. So if it's all of them standing in a room singing with just a microphone and that's it, then that's what it'll be. I do really think though that their staging in May will be phenomenal because it is Ukraine. Even if they've got a song that isn't good, they run with it and they make some of the best staging of that year. So I really do have high hopes for what the staging will be, both national final and beyond.
I don't think I have anything to add that will change what you and Isabel were saying. Mostly, I just want to add that when it comes to when it comes to instruments on stage, you know that Kruch will be having her instrument like that. The harp, what is the thing that is the most iconic about her? Like, you know, she will be having it on stage, so that's not that's the fact that it won't be that she won't be having like it's her what she's now known for. But yeah, I'm not that hopeful for stagings. As I said, we will be having the same stages like as The Voice had, because a few days ago the Voice of Ukraine ended and the grand final happened, and the stage was just simple-ish. It was just a part of the Kyiv Metro stage and the chairs for The Voice. Like you have them and the audience behind. I think maybe some minor things. Like there was one thing that last year that I hoped for Alina's song because she did like a TV performance when she had like a swing. And I thought the swing would be back for Vidbir. It wasn't. Maybe I really hope Crouch will have a swing because I think the Kolskova is like it would fit Kolskova a lot, or just maybe not even swing, but maybe just like a chair that's like you could say that a rocking chair, like something like that, because I think you need the dream aesthetic in her song, and it's just yeah, I'm so passionate about Kolskova, so I have to just just throw this out. And for yeah, I think Dove Bush will have an iconic staging. I agree. When it comes to When God Shut the Door, I have no idea what will happen with the staging for her. I am thinking it will be simple for Vidbir. Her maybe wearing traditional Ukrainian outfits. I don't know, I have no idea if the LEDs are there. So I don't know if but I would say LED, pretty heavy LEDs. Probably most of the songs, if the LEDs are, probably most of the songs have heavy LEDs. But yeah, I am not hoping for much. Just I am really happy that they are doing the national final. They could just make an internal selection and save all the money for Eurovision. But as Euan and Isabel said, the staging in May will be amazing. So I am not scared about that. So we already talked about stagings in May, but what do you think? Is there a song or songs in the lineup that you think has potential to do well in the contest, like has a competitive potential to do well?
I think definitely. And at the same time, I think it doesn't matter. Like the thing that's, I mean, we know this, but the thing that's fabulous about being a winning country is that you don't have to worry about necessarily sending the most competitive song, you know, something which can really kind of derail the selection. You know, that kind of anxiety over, oh God, we've got to send something that will be accessible, that loads of people will resonate with, that will get us through the semi-finals. The fact that they don't have to worry about that makes me really, really hope that they send so Ukraine often pushes the envelope. Like, they're no stranger to pushing the envelope at Eurovision and like doing stuff that other countries maybe taking risks that other countries don't take or are a bit more hesitant to take. There's no better year to do that than in a year where their qualification is guaranteed, and then, you know, they know they're not going to mess up that perfect streak. So it makes me kind of think that, and the thing that's beautiful is that sometimes it's those exact songs that resonate the most and that end up, you know, in the bloody top 10. So I think that, you know, When God Shut the Door is an obvious, the fact that, and I said, didn't I, that I bet that the lyrics will resonate with some people, even if they don't with me. And as it happens, actually, Janek, you picked the one part of the lyrics that I think are amazing. Like, I completely agree. I think that verse is amazing. It's the rest of it that I think is, I would just really wish it, I really wish that, you know, I really like, I want that to be rewritten. I want someone to come along and like revamp it so that it just, you know, hits that. I know what it's trying to do. It's, you know, I just wish it was hitting it better earlier in the song. I wish we didn't have to wait for that absolutely incredible. You're right. Anybody who's ever been roused in the, you know, in the middle of the night in crisis, whether it's personal or, you know, national, knows exactly what that feeling is of the roosters crowing at midnight. And I think that song has the potential to hit really hard for a lot of people. And I mean, there's something about it that, this might sound weird and I can't really explain why, there's something about it that does remind me a little bit of Greece this year. And maybe it's the fact that it lyrically doesn't connect for me very well, but I'm aware that it connected so strongly for so many people lyrically. I could see it being a similar situation where like I'm sitting there going, I just don't think it's very good. I just don't think the words are very good, and everybody else being like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. It just makes me cry and weep, and it's my soul on paper. You know, I could see it being that again. I really can envision, if Jerry Hell wins Vidbir, I can absolutely envision a top 10 finish for Ukraine. And that's because I think it's musically incredibly strong, and I can really picture a lot of ways that staging wise they could make it hit really hard and hit really emotively as well. Like I think if Ukraine wants to really like go for another win or another top 10, then like that would be a pretty smart, cynical move as well, just because all of these songs, not all, but like a lot of these songs are kind of coming from a place of in some way talking about pain and comfort, whether it's directly talking about the war or whether they're sort of the song itself is, I mean, even like, you know, that refrain in the Timbre Blanche song, I'm home, that's really powerful in the context. It's a powerful refrain anyway, I think, even though it's this pretty soft sort of innocuous sounding song, but it's particularly powerful in the context of so many Ukrainians not being home. There's a lot of you know, the lullaby is a comforting song, right? When do you need comfort? You need comfort when things are scary. But there is a lot in, you know, this lineup that sort of, I think, could really tug on heartstrings. And I think that Jerry Hell's just probably doing it the most explicitly, which again, not necessarily my favorite thing, but I could see that being really successful and really punching a lot of people in the gut come May. But I think that anything that wins Vidbir will stand a really strong chance of doing very well in May. In terms of competitive songs, I think a lot of them could be competitive, depending on the staging. But I think the thing that's exciting me the most about it is, I think, you know, we've already sort of all alluded to, is that the songs that I think are the best in this lineup are the ones that are actually the most out there and the most experimental. We haven't mentioned Two Tone, and like in some ways it's sort of almost a bit of a dated sounding, it's sort of that like emo kind of new metal sound in a way, that kind of that rock rap. I have a real fondness for it because it really brings me back to kind of like my like late school years, and like, you know, that noughts kind of sound. But there's something appealing about the songs that I think might fly under the radar in a normal year getting a ticket to the final. So I'm like dying with excitement at the thought that Oi Sound System, with their mad experimental business, might just like go straight to the final. And I'd be so elated. And the same with Vinca, to be honest. And to be honest, even though it's not one of my favorites, or it's not like, it's not my top two right now, the idea of a harp lullaby being just directly sent to the final, that's so iconic. Actually, I think that would be so iconic. So I guess my answer to your question, Janek, is like, I don't care. I don't care if these are competitive or not. But yes, I do think that there's a lot in here that if it's there's just a lot of different directions that this could go in. If we don't say, okay, it's Jerry Hale's, I think it is Jerry Hale's game to lose. But if we don't sort of say, okay, it's definitely her victory, which I don't want to write off anybody else at this stage. Not with the strength of some of these acts, not with how interesting some of their sounds are.
Just the first one I'm going to discuss, I think it's interesting that you mentioned Two Tone. That's actually my favorite song in the selection show, and I think it has the real potential to stand out and do quite well because it's a sound that we're probably not going to hear a lot of songs that sound like this. So that the spoken part, I think, will stand out to people really well, viewers, and I think will stick with people. So that's one of the ones that I think does have the potential of doing really, really well. Just talking about Jerry Hill, because I think, as most people talk about it, When God Shuts the Door, it's probably the song that everyone's expecting to win. I don't think it has the potential to win because it's so evocative about the war and because it leans into the topic so much. So now I don't think people voted Stefania because Ukraine was invaded. I think that it made the song speak to people in a different way that it would have done without the context of the war. But the fact that Ukraine won with that song, the song speaking to people in that way, that then coming back with a second song that's a bit more explicit about it will mean people that would typically have their heartstrings pulled by it will maybe necessarily think like we've already let them win with a song that we consider is more related to the war. So that's why I think that maybe Jerry Hale wouldn't necessarily do this the two in a row. I really do think that Ukraine will break its curse of doing really bad with the host entry because currently their two worst performing entries were Osterwald and the name slipped me, Green Jolly. Because the Razom Naspota and Time are two of their worst performing entries, quite unjustly, I would honestly think. But I think the songs here, although I have criticized them, Ukraine will elevate them. They will do really well. I don't think a lot of them have the potential for top five. Two Tone, I think, could do it. Vinca, I think, could do top five with the perfect staging and just really leaning into the Ukrainianness of it. And I think it's the same with Koliskova, like really leaning into this and just celebrating Ukrainian culture will resonate a lot more with people and does have potential doing well. But in the current state, I do think a lot of the songs do have potential for maybe top 10, but the lower end of the top 10. I'm not seeing a lot of double wins in the current state of a lot of songs.
I'd agree with that. Just to temper my own overexcitement. I think that I don't think it's like likely that they'll take a double win, and I actually don't think that many of these would make a top five either. And my favorite Oi Tuju, I think that's like a classic. If that, if that happens to, oh my God, if that happens to win this selection, like that I think is like a classic, like 21st place. So, right, like, I mean, electronica never does well at Eurovision. Hatari's like one of the only examples of it ever doing, like, of it ever touching the top 10. So I don't like necessarily have high hopes of in that sense, but
I know that I will become basic and going and repeating myself, but I think the only songs that could do out of 5 is Kolskova. I think is a no-brainer that it has potential to 5 because I know Crouch will bring amazing stagings. Like even when I wasn't a fan of 99, I thought the staging was so ethereal, so beautiful. So I am not scared about her. I think Koskova is a no-brainer for a very great result because Europe loves when Ukraine shows their culture, when they shows how their traditions. I think Koskova will do very well.
You don't think it would be a case of like Ojardim? Because I think that that's what would happen. I think, and
I mean, Ojardim. Okay. Let's say Ojardim had. I love Ojardim, but I think the stagings was just not impactful for the song. I think the song needed something else for the staging. I feel like just Portugal didn't want to do a win, so they just did whatever with the staging. That's my opinion. Like I think Ojardim is amazing, but I feel the staging didn't fit the song. But with Ukraine, I know that the staging will be amazing. I know the staging will be on point. So I am like Kolskova is already in my opinion one of the most competitive songs, knowing that staging will be great.
I don't also really think you can kind of compare Ukraine, which is in the last decade. I think it is the first or the second best performing country by like average percentage points. And
Isn't it first? Like I think it's first.
I think.
I mean, it's up there. We know that it's
regardless,
one of the
like
most successful, if not the most successful
compared
country.
to
Yeah.
then Portugal, which is historically one of the worst performers of Eurovision.
But I'm not comparing it to Portugal. I'm specifically comparing a lullaby to Ojardim, which it's not a lullaby, but it has a lullaby vibe to it. They're very similar tones of the, if not the same, almost the same tone of song, kind of a nostalgia tinged lullaby song. And I think they're both incredibly beautiful songs. And the reason I bring it up is because I think it's a classic host entry, actually. Like I think it would slap as a host entry, but I think that it would surprise me if it did very well as a host entry. And that's because I think that there's a certain level, I think that it's really uncommon. And I think it's just, if it happens to capture the mood the way that Salvador Sobral did when he won, if it just happens to capture the mood right, or Europe happens to be in the right mood for it, I should say, then that's something. But those sorts of songs, those quiet moments, they don't tend to do very well, and I hate that. I love a really beautiful quiet Eurovision moment, and actually I think that in some ways Ukraine can be compared to Portugal because they're both countries that do a thing that know their own identity very strongly and that are appreciated when they show their own identity strongly, their own musical identity and their own culture strongly. I know they're completely different, but I don't think that it's like as chalk and cheese as you're making out.
I feel like I need to elaborate further, but when Ukraine does something that's distinctly Ukraine, it has cultures that are similar that can appreciate a little bit more and do appreciate a little bit more. But when Portugal leans into the Portugueseness of it, people, which I completely disagree, but people don't seem to really care. So
yeah, no, I mean,
so I think,
and that's partly because
for Portugal and the exact same song for Ukraine, people are going to compare. People are going to pay attention to Ukraine more because it's Ukraine and they have more of an interest in Ukraine.
And also because like you say, like there's a lot of regional familiarity. One of the things that makes Portuguese culture so specific is that it's like got a lot of North African influence. It's got a lot of influence from it's got a lot of influences that actually a lot of Europe doesn't recognize. So I know what you're saying. I get that. I'm surprised to hear you say that, Janek, that you think Lullaby is one of the most competitive in the lineup, because I think it would slap as a host entry, but I think it would be a classic host entry, a classic thing to field when you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to qualify.
Okay, so continuing my
I'm sorry.
When it comes to the rest of the entries, I think some of them have a chance to top 10. Like Jerry Hill, I think she has a potential top 10. Dabush has a potential for top 10. So these are the songs that I think, like, if done as clearly well, I think top 10 is just a matter of which placing in the top 10. But I think with it's very hard to say, because it's so unpredictable what the voting will be in May. I would say Koiskova is mostly a jury bait, I would say, because of her vocals and the instrumentation, I would say. But I would say the televoters also would appreciate it because of it's Ukraine's culture. Like, Europe loves Ukraine. There are a lot of elements that is very prominent to Slavic culture in fruits music. So I would say it matter. Like, there are only two Slavic countries in Eurovision right now. So, I don't know, it's us and Ukraine. So, like, it's very very hard to say. Like, but I would say that maybe the Balkans will also relate because of the instrumentation. But we'll see. So Isabel already mentioned a bit about this, but Ukraine, of course, because they won last year, they are part of the Big Five plus the hosting country. Since they are not hosting, but they won but they are pre-qualified. Isabel already talked about it, like, about the qualification a bit, but I just want to throw that everyone has a chance to say something about it. Just a reminder, it's 2023. The semifinals are a bit different now. It's a completely different topic in itself, but we are having 100% televoting for semifinal. I am very interested how this will look like, if we are having a shift of what kind of genre we are seeing in Eurovision. Like, I feel like maybe most of countries will go away from more like a jury-based songs and go with more like a televote friendly. But are we having if we are having 37 10 Let's Roll type songs, I don't care, give it to me. Like, I wasn't a big fan of 10 Let's Roll, but if we are having the same vibe for all artists, just give it to me. So yeah, there are other any overall you think that if Ukraine was in the semifinals, do you think they would qualify with ease, or would they be struggling a bit with the songs they're showcasing for Vidbir this year?
I think that they would qualify with almost anything that they sent out of this lineup, even if they were having to go through the semi-finals. It's like a good point you bring up, that there is a bit of an unknown kind of factor in that, have the semi-finals have ever since semi-finals have come in, they've always been jury televote split, haven't they? There's never been. Did they used to be televote only? Okay.
Up until so from 2004 to 2009, it was entirely televote, but for 2008 and 2009, there was also the 10th place was the jury.
Yeah. Oh, was that the only jury vote? Was the 10th place?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
North Macedonia, or just decided,
yeah,
or notoriously annoyed by
I've
10th place twice.
Yeah. No. I like that. Yeah, that's an interesting choice. So I mean, I should qualify this. All Eurovisions pretty much before, I'm going to say 2014, are a blur to me, because I was a casual viewer and a drunk viewer during all of those. So I'm considerably older than I think everybody on the Eurovision sites team. So just in case anybody out there's like, judging me, I was a grown up, okay. I was a grown up and I was not that heavily invested. So they were just they were Eurovision parties, and many of them were a blur. So please don't judge me too harshly, or judge me all you like. I just won't care. Thank you for clarifying that. But okay, but we're talking for the last over a decade now. It's been a decade, basically. It's been over a decade since we've had an all televote semi-final situation. So it is a bit of an unknown entity, because God, the competition has changed since then. The music scene has changed since then. Like, people's sensibilities have changed. So I think that there's no certainty going into this Eurovision season with regards to who's going to come out of the semis and who isn't. So I'm excited for the chaos. But I do think that Ukraine would qualify. And I think that's partly because there's just a lot of goodwill towards Ukraine at the moment in Europe, right? Like, which is understandable. I think it would take a really crap song for people to be like, nah, I'm not going to vote for them. I just think that I'm just being real here. Like I say, there are some underwhelming songs in this lineup, but there's nothing really terrible. So I think they'd have to really mess up the staging quite badly for, have a terrible vocal performance on the night for like any of these to like be so bad that they wouldn't qualify out of the semi-finals. But I think there's a few songs in here that would absolutely like do brilliantly in the televote. Most of these songs I think would do well in a televote. I think that's something that Ukraine tends to do, is like televoters like Ukraine, and it's partly because they always have almost always have like folk elements, or like specifically Ukrainian cultural elements in their songs. There's a couple of songs in this mix that I wouldn't expect to do particularly well with the juries, something like Kvitka, but would do well with a televote, because juries tend to hear a guitar and get freaked out, but like televoters bloody love a guitar. So I'm an electric guitar, just anything that's rock adjacent tends to freak out the juries and like tends to like get televotes. So no, I think that this lineup is appealing from a televoter's point of view.
I think with this question, the most important thing to remember is Ukraine is Ukraine. They have the 100% qualification record for a reason. They could take the most bland man on a stage singing the most bland pop song ever and just elevate it. I mean, they got to the final with Gaetana, and Be My Guest, and like Ukraine can send anything, and it will get to the final. Like all of these songs, even I've flagged off these songs. Obviously, I've flagged off these songs because I've been quite harsh with them, but it's Ukraine. They will elevate every single one, and as I said, they do well with televote. I would say virtually every single song here is a televote song. The only one that I would really say, I think the only single one I would say that is jury is maybe Moise, because even Terre Blanche, like, it's not something that the juries actually tend to love. I think it's one of those things that people say juries will love this, but then it doesn't actually get the votes. It tends to be the televote actually, but I think everything here would sail through. I'm sorry, there's not really much more I can say, but Ukraine's Ukraine. They have that qualification record for a reason. They're one of the best countries in Eurovision for a reason.
Wow, thank you very much for this amazing discussion. I'm not gonna add anything to this because I feel like everything was said. Just Ukraine, 100% qualification for a reason. Thank you very much for listening and watching us ramble about Ukraine. If you want to see more of our discussions, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can like the video, ring the bell to receive notifications when we post new videos. We're trying to be on time with every news that is happening. Maybe not expect immediate videos for us when the news hits, because most of us are either in work, at uni, whatever. So please be patient with us, but for sure we'll be bringing you discussions and news to you. So don't forget to follow us on social media. Of course, our website is thateurovisionsite.com, and we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, which is at that Eurosite. We also have Tumblr and Mastodon, but I do not remember the URLs. So let's leave that we do have them. We can easily find them. We also have a podcast. We talked about a lot of topics, especially as free. We are on a lot of episodes lately. We like to run about mostly about countries at Eurovision. So hopefully you could also check it out. You can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts also, or you can listen us directly on the site when the articles are being published. We try to publish one episode a week, or usually it's Saturday, 12 p.m. British British time, which is like 1 p.m. Central European time, or around like middle of the day. So you could enjoy your Saturday with episode with us. And we have, of course, social media for That Euro Podcast at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I think that's it for the outro. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.